We've got everybody assembled here, so we're off to a great start. I see some people tuning in as well. I'm sure everyone's going to have some hot takes on the Super Bowl commercials. I know we talked a little bit earlier, and we even have some conflicting takes. So for those of you who are joining in, if you have comments to share, feel free to leave your thoughts as we go, and we'll do our best to share them along the way.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about the game last night? Did you know there was a game last
No.
night? Was that your bathroom break time between the commercials?
Yeah, great. No, that game was great. That was Philly really went for it.
Mm-hmm.
At a certain point, I did just start feeling bad for the Chiefs. I was like, "Oh, let them get a couple. Come on."
I know, poor Mahomes.
It was interesting. I know past few Super Bowls they've been down. So the Eagles went up and you're like, is this really happening? Or is this just another storyline like, yep, crazy comeback? It was not.
The storyline.
That was a beatdown. It was a
It was
beatdown.
brutal.
Yeah.
I agree.
Agreed.
Wild.
I like any good football game, but I don't even know if I'd call that a good football game. It was just a beatdown.
Yeah.
We've got a pretty good group of people tuning in now here too. Yeah, what a great crew. You're right, Mike. And some of that includes some of our other Gatesman team members. So thank you guys for tuning in. And again, we're going to be breaking down some of the touchdowns and the fumbles or turnovers from the commercial perspective because we're in advertising and that's what we care about. But before we dive in, as some people are starting to join now, I'll just do a quick rundown of who we have here on our live today. I'm Melissa Mader. I'm an account director on the PR and social team. So I'll be just giving my PR and social take, some behind the scenes of what you might have missed from a social conversation standpoint. We also have Grant Tollett, who's a senior media manager, lending that paid perspective to us today. We have Matt Lawrenson, senior designer. So if anyone's going to be brutal to the creative, it's probably going to be Matt today. And we also have Brittany Jarkey, senior account executive, who's at the forefront of brands for our client perspective. So she's going to be bringing that expertise here today. And again, I've said this already, but if you weren't on at that point, we are going to be reading the comments too and doing our best to share your opinions. So if you have takes that conflict with ours, if there's spots you loved or didn't love and we didn't talk about them, definitely throw that in the comments and we will do our best to get to that. And that includes the halftime show. So we didn't get a chance in our introductory banter to get into the halftime show, but I know a lot of people have thoughts on that too. And if you were curious, I'll start with this. We were polling our Instagram followers along the way, and 76% thought halftime was a touchdown. So I'll try to keep you guys in the loop on where some of our other polls landed as we go. But that's enough intro. I really want to hear what everybody thinks about the spots. And like I said, I heard a little bit earlier, so I'm excited to break it all down. I'm going to start us off with the big question. Jalen Hurts was the MVP last night, if you stayed awake long enough to see that. I want to know who you all think the commercials MVP was. And Matt, who do you think? Who was your MVP?
All right. So I think my MVP has got to go to the Tubi. The Tubi ad.
Pretty controversial take.
Some people really liked it. Some people really hated it. I liked that it was weird and different. I think that was something that was really, really necessary to stand out, especially if you're focusing on, Gen Z audiences, and really just trying to like break through some of the noise of all the other commercials. So it's definitely it was not always pleasant to look at, but it is something that will definitely stick with you for a long time. And I don't think I'm going to ever forget about those odd cowboy hats. So I think it's got to be my MVP purely on how long it's going to stick with me. And I like the message of, kind of, hey, there's a genre for everyone. Be true to yourself, like that kind of thing. That was a pretty good selling point. So that'd be my.
hot take, and Brady is in a tizzy in the comments. But how about you, Britt? Do you have something that will excite the commenters a little bit more?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't say Tubi is my MVP,
Oh,
but my MVP is probably going to be Michelob Ultra.
okay.
I loved pulling in pickleball, pulling some like sports trends that we were seeing in 2024, 2023. It felt very timely, and there's something about William Dafoe jumping 6 feet in the air to smack pickleball down that just brought a smile to my face, and that was definitely like the best seller that I saw.
Also good rationale.
Thanks,
Grant,
Shannon.
Grant, who do you got?
Oh man. So kind of piggybacking off Brittany in the spirit of watching somebody do something crazy athletic, I have to go with the NFL flag 50 MVP.
That's good.
Um, it was the one where the woman went toe to toe with the guy and she jukes him. Then everyone's like, "Get her!" and she hits the Saquon Barkley like backwards hurdle. That got me out of my seat. Literally, like got me out of my seat. I'm like, "Let's go!" So that one was just my favorite. Just the message behind it that women can do what men can do. I really like that, and just visually watching her drag all of those guys that thought they were better than her. I thought that was amazing. It just got me going. So that would give that one my MVP.
That's a good pick. I like that. Yeah. For me, Google probably was mine. I'm sure you all had a lot of runner-ups. I had a lot of trouble picking between Google and AngelSoft, shockingly. I thought their approach to telling everyone not to watch the ad and go get that potty break in was really unique. But at the end of the day, Google just had a really heartwarming story. And as a parent, I know it tugged at my heartstrings. But most importantly for me, I loved that the product placement was really subtle and almost like secondary, especially for AI, a secondary to the human storytelling. So I loved that one. That one's going to be in my head for a while. But Grant, you mentioned something that one of our commenters even just hit on. I think that was Kayla, that there was a bit of a female empowerment theme. So that got me thinking, just in general, are there themes or trends amongst the ads that you guys saw or that you liked or didn't like? And Brittany, I'm curious for your take on any trends from your standpoint that really stood out at the end of the night.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually funny because one of the trends, Mike just commented about Seal, and it kind of taps into it. And we were talking a little bit about this earlier, but there were a lot of ads that felt kind of focused on Gen Z. And Matt, when we were talking earlier, had pointed out that it was mainly in like the food and beverage category of those ads. So the Mountain Dew seal being a seal ad felt very much like memeable, which is great for that audience. There were, I think the Poppy ad had a great use of influencers that were very popular in 2024 with Rob from Love Island. You had Jake Shane, you had Alex Earl. It was a great use of influencer that felt like it was really geared towards Gen Z.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of like one of the things I saw. I'll let everybody else kind of chime in as well, because I know that we all kind of had similar thoughts here.
Yeah. What did you think, Grant? I mean, I don't know if that was your trend, obviously inspired the question,
Uh,
but did you notice any other trends?
Honestly, now that you say it, that I think that was the trend. Empowerment of women. I like that just in general. Empowering women, especially tailoring it to obviously women in general, but also making sure that young women feel empowered and they see those examples in front of them. I like that trend. I also said there was a trend earlier, and I think we all agreed on this with aliens just being in everything. I think it was in the Doritos
Yep.
commercial, the Tostino's pizza rolls, which I have very strong feelings about that one. We'll talk about later. But there was like an alien theme. I thought it was pretty cool to kind of have that.
Yeah, there was definitely an alien theme. Pete Davidson is apparently an alien. We all know that now. For me, I feel like a bit of a broken record with my trend because every year for the past several years, nostalgia seems to be what stands out to me. That was definitely a big one this year too. There was When Harry Met Sally, what you were talking about, Grant, the ET inspired moment. Seal even is nostalgic for me. I was actually kind of surprised with such a Gen Z focus that they chose an artist like Seal because he is so so 90s. But beyond that, though, I did make an interesting just observation when we were on X posting throughout the night. There was just a lot more people on there than I'm used to seeing. A lot more brands too on the platform. So that's just something that I know from a social perspective we're going to be watching to see, is that just a flash in the pan because the X platform just really lends itself to talking about all these types of conversations that come up during live events like the Super Bowl, or are we really going to see more of that platform? So I know that's something we'll always have our eyes on for our clients. So as I was on there, I was like, wow, there's there's a lot of activity, but a little bit separate from the commercials. Matt, I want to hear your take. From the commercial standpoint, did you see any trends or unique things?
Yeah. I know, Melissa, you kind of touched on it a little bit on your MVP, but AI was kind of everywhere in these
Yeah.
ads. I counted at least 6, 7 different commercials where AI was the main focus.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of runner up for me for MVP, but ChatGPT's commercial I thought was absolutely beautiful. Like highly graphics, starting with the black dots as they kind of start multiplying, showing like the history of like human evolution and humanity, and kind of ending on, bringing it towards ChatGPT. That was definitely something that like held my attention the whole time, and I was like, "Oh, what is this? What's it gonna be?" It's so
Yeah.
kind of like following all the dots coming through and everything. It was very visually striking, but also with like Coke and Google and a couple other ones. So AI was really big. As I mean, we all know, working in advertising and in creative fields, AI is just a really big talk of the moment. So it was interesting to see that reflected.
Yeah, and to see how different brands approached it was
Mhm.
really cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got a lot of love for some of the various ads in the comments. I don't want to be negative, but I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about which brands maybe fumbled, had a little bit of a turnover, if not a total miss. And I can kick us off with this one because it does build off of a little bit of what we were already talking about. And Poppy was actually one for me. Sorry, Britt. And I know there's a lot of just mixed feelings in general. And I think I saw Courtney in the comments mentioning Poppy didn't necessarily hit the spot for her. But what's interesting about them is if their ad didn't have a kickoff campaign leading into it that was a little controversial, I think I would have felt differently because the ad itself was a really fun aesthetic. It did have some really cool influencers in there that and without the kickoff campaign, I think would have landed. But for some quick background, the ad did include influencers like Jake Shane, Alex Earl, some of the influencers that people love to see. But in addition to that, on a kickoff front, they also had an influencer campaign where they sent out very expensive vending machines to some of the top TikTok influencers. And I've priced out vending machines before, custom, believe it or not, and they are pricey. So a lot of people were questioning, why are they giving this to influencers instead of their customers, and really tearing them apart. And to add insult to injury, Olipop was in all their competitor was in all the comments reminding people they give back to customers. So there's a lot of just online discourse in the few days leading into their spot. And so once you watch their spot and it's all influencer focused, it feels uninformed, but we know how much time goes into developing those spots. A pivot is very hard in that last moment. So I don't know if we'll see it hurt Poppy or if, I mean, Tarte, that makeup brand, is always getting big criticism over their influencer trips that are really lavish. So they haven't seen an impact to their bottom line. Maybe it'll be fine for Poppy, but I do think they might lose some fans just because of the influencer focus, which is weird for someone in my position to even be covering. But yeah, what did you guys think? What brands fumbled from your perspective? Grant, was there one that stood out to you?
All right, so I know a lot of people are gonna feel different. I don't even know how to say it. Totino's pizza rolls. That commercial to me, I was just watching it, and they were like, "Oh, you're going back to space," and then they just murder the guy, and I'm just like, why'd you have to murder him? And then the old those were like, "Yeah, well, we weren't really that close with him, anyways." I mean, I get it; it's a play on ET, but for me, I'm just like, y'all didn't have to kill him. We could have figured out another way. So I don't know. I just felt like it was just weird, and I don't know if it really fit Tostino's. And then the wrap up of it was the best snack in the universe or something. I mean, you guys can have the best snack of the universe without murdering people. That's just how I feel. So,
Oh, really? Oh, really?
so
Oh
that
my
was
God.
me. I was just like, it just didn't land for me personally.
Yeah, that got a lot of mixed responses, seems like. Matt, what was yours?
Um, Mine was, I think it's got to be the MSC Cruise commercial. It had Drew Barrymore and another celebrity whose name is escaping me right now. Kind of just comparing how Europeans and Americans refer to things and see things. To me, it kind of came off as a little annoying, a little pandering to the U.S. You could definitely tell they were trying to focus in on the American market, but it did kind of feel like a little bit of an odd positioning, where it just kind of came off as like very snarky and not like endearingly snarky. So I don't know. It just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So
Yeah.
that's kind of it's kind of got to be my miss right now.
62% of our Instagram followers would agree with you by last night's pool.
All
So
right.
and a lot of our pools, I will say too, just got a lot of mixed responses, a lot of people in the middle. So that was definitely one that people would agree with you on now. What about you, Brittany? Anybody fumble in your book?
Yeah, Matt, I hate to say it, but it was that Tubi commercial. I was very disturbed by it.
Mhm.
I felt like last year, Tubi's commercial was great, especially for what Tubi is. They interrupted your game and everybody's looking around for the remote. Meanwhile, it's just a commercial. I thought that was great for their brand. I was struggling a little bit to understand why that was the visual that they went with
Mhm.
for this. I think the messaging is there, basically showing that on Tubi there's something for everyone. You don't have to tailor your thoughts to, I guess, whatever the streaming platform is offering you.
Right.
But the visuals were just such a miss for me. I definitely fear that I might have some nightmares after that one.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be the only one. It sounds like Kelly was agreeing with you in the comments too, that one's a little off. Well, obviously that, unfortunately for you, Britt, might be one that you're thinking about for a while. That's what I want to talk more about now, though. Are there any that are really going to stick with you in your head because they made such a big impact on you, whether for better or for worse? Grant, anything on your end?
Oh man, I, I'm gonna have to say the fetch one because
Okay.
just hearing the phrase "we're gonna give $10,000 to somebody every 2 seconds," like that is that. If you download this app, that is just that's crazy. I think I was talking about this earlier from a paid media perspective, like giving people that incentive to download the app and then giving them a place to like physically click, like with the QR code and things like that. Thought it was pretty good, well executed. And at the end of the day, if you give people money, they'll do what you want them to do.
That's
Just
fair.
little joke, little
Not
joke.
a not a bad play to pull out of your
Yeah.
playbook. Brittany,
Brady,
what's
I
going?
agree. The Mr. Beast
Yeah,
vibes were
Yeah.
there.
totally.
100%.
Taking it to the Super Bowl. Brittany, what was yours? What's one that you're going to be thinking about?
Yeah, I actually saw John and Mike talking about this one earlier, but it was the Liquid Death
Cool.
commercial. It was catchy, it was funny, and it was also rebellious, which I feel like very much fits their brands.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, every time I'm like in a car and I have a Liquid Death with me, I feel a little weird drinking it because I'm like, oh my gosh, is somebody going to think this is something that it's not? And so I loved that the commercial really tapped into that, and they were very they understood what their brand is, and I really enjoyed that one. I'm gonna have that tune stuck in my head.
Yeah, it looks like Colin agrees with you. I know Mike earlier was saying their brand rise has been really cool to
Oh yeah.
watch. So good pick, Matt. What do you have on your mind today?
Well, I absolutely love the Liquid Death one. I gotta agree. It was so cheeky and fun, and I thought it was great. But I think the ones that are gonna stick with me, I think there's two. It's the Little Caesars and the Pringles. Kind of lumping them together because they both involved hair popping off your face and flying away. So Little Caesars was with Eugene Levy, his famous eyebrows flying off while he's eating Little Caesars little bite things and then kind of going around and annoying people. And then the Pringles, several different famous mustaches, like Nick Offerman popped off when this guy was trying to get some Pringles out of the can. Brittany brought up a good point in our kind of pre-show talk that the Pringles is probably working a little better because it is so much more related to the brand. And Little Caesars is mostly just relating to the celebrity they had's physical appearance. But I think both were very fun and goofy, and they're definitely going to stick with me for a while. So
Yeah, definitely. For me, Coffee Mate, unfortunately, mine's not like a little negative, unfortunately. It's going to stick with me because I start every morning with Coffee Mate, and when I reached for it this morning, it was off-putting. I know, Britt, you had mentioned at one point earlier today, you had some love for that one, but I would consider myself their target demographic. And when they announced Shania Twain was going to be in it, she did her little teaser. I was like, I get this. This is right up my alley. And then I tuned in and they lost me. I don't know. There are definitely some pros, of course, that I'm going to be thinking about that for a while. But from a PR perspective, the fact that it felt so different from their general brand aesthetic and what someone like me, not to center myself in it, but it's sort of expected from Shania Twain's involvement, I was like, it's like that phrase in PR. Sometimes people say, all press is good press. No, not all thoughts are good thoughts. So sounds like Steph agrees a little bit.
I will say, like, the reason that I kind of liked the Coffee Mate one was that it was kind of tapping back into what I was saying with the trends of Gen Z.
Mm-hmm.
It felt memeable. It felt like while yes, you might be their target demographic, they're trying to also persuade younger a little bit more. Maybe people who are just starting to drink coffee now and all of that. So I do have love for that ad. It was creepy. The tongue was a little creepy, but I have a spot in my heart for it.
That's a really good take, though, because I do think sometimes the Super Bowl is where we start to see brands try to go after an audience they're not always in front of. And Gen Z definitely was a common thread in some of these ads and clearly a focus. So, yeah, it's definitely a good take. And in general, I think from my standpoint, a lot of the ads had those mixed reviews. So we saw that in our polls a lot of them landing 60% liked or didn't like. I think there was only 1% or one ad that got 100% in our polls, and that was Tubi. That 100% thought it was a turnover, not for them. But we heard today, obviously, Matt gets it.
What's up? So it's okay with the tongues being weird, but not your flesh cowboy hat. So that's where we draw the line. It's good to know.
And this is a good space at the Super Bowl to test that sort of thing out. Where is that line? Where's it gonna be? We had a couple other ads that I'll hit on too that in our poll got a little bit swinging one way or the other. Dove got a lot of love in our ads. 90% thought that one was a touchdown. Beyond that, 92% thought Bud Light was a big win. And then I know in our comments there are some other ones being mentioned as ads they loved. The Case of the Mondays, I feel like, had a lot of people talking. So we can definitely take a little time to break down some of the ads our commenters love. So if there's anything else, it's a plug, if there's anything else that we didn't mention that you guys had a lot of heart for and why, feel free to throw that in the comments. But while you plug in any last minute thoughts, I did want to hit you all with a poll that we did on X instead of Instagram stories. And that was, which creepy character will be causing you the most nightmares from here on out? So I will start because mine builds off my last comment. Coffee Mate is going to be it for me. Although Tubi was right up there. I mean, that cowboy had me feeling uneasy, but yeah, Coffee Mate's it for me. How about you, Brittany?
Matt, you're going to be shocked at my response because it's not Tubi. Mine is the Tostino's Pizza Rolls Alien. I fully agree with Grant's take on why did that have to happen. I had seen that ad before it came on yesterday, and I remember watching the Doritos ad and saw that there was like that tie-in with aliens, and I had said like, well, at least this alien doesn't die. And then they blow up the ship, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I think all of these poor aliens, but especially the Pizza Rolls alien, are just going to be locked up here in my nightmares.
Oh
That
man,
is so true. The shock
they'd have to
factor of it,
do
though,
it.
did appeal to me. I mean, I kind of on the other side of that. I think it was good. And I think Brady pointed out, I'm not familiar with it, but it did build off of the popularity of I Think You Should Leave. And for me, I liked it because I'm just hoping they pull a Mr. Peanut. And then the next one, Alien comes back to life. All is good
Yeah,
again. I don't know what they
fingers
have up their
crossed.
sleeves, but it
Fingers
was a shocker.
crossed.
Uh,
Matt, what's yours?
well, I think it's got to be the Tostina's one as well.
Oh, man.
They, they also released an extended version on Instagram. And I don't think that alien's coming back to life. It's more
I'm gonna have
trouble
to watch
befalls
that.
this alien. Yeah, I think that one's gonna stick with me. It's
Oh man,
a lot of body horror.
poor alien. Who knew what was in store for him? Grant, what about you?
They took my. I was gonna say like they just squished him. They
Well,
just squished him for no reason, and it was
well,
so abrupt. I looked. I was, why we do that? Why we do that?
I feel like we should have included that one in the pool. We ended up hitting them with Coffee Mate Tongue, Two Weeks Cowboy Head, and Mountain Dew Seal. And of those three, at least, the Coffee Mate Tongue is winning on X. So maybe I'll have to do a follow up on behalf of Gatesman and give an honorable mention to the poor alien. I'm seeing, and speaking of honorable mentions, some of the ads we didn't talk about, I'm seeing some love for in the comments. Nate Bergazzi's DoorDash ad. I know that one got some positive reception. I think that Beth Thompson from our team had mentioned there might be a little connection there to Tom Scandival, which Sandoval and Scandival. I'm not super familiar with the lore there, but I do like those little cameos and moments that tie back to other niche things. I see Brady's talking about the live action Stitch teaser. I was obsessed with that. I
I
love
loved
whenever it
that
feels
one.
like the game. What do you guys think of that one?
I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought
Yeah.
it was really fun. It was a really clever idea to have him like kind of go crazy on a football field.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I
It
really
felt for a
loved
second I was
it.
like, what?
It felt real. Yeah, it felt
Yeah.
real.
No, I think Disney is always a hit with their ads. Even their just Disney Plus commercial. I thought was so funny having Josh Gad like voice over it and it very much ending in best of all, there were a lot of murders in this building. Just like touching on the fact that Disney Plus is now also Hulu and
Yeah.
ESPN. It felt funny. I know last year's was very heartfelt and it started off very heartfelt, but once you added Josh Gad, it's gonna get funny.
Yeah.
So I think Disney is always a win.
Oh yeah, I like that one too. Brady pointed out it is surprising that Paramount Plus didn't have some sort of follow up, but
Mm-hmm.
we saw a lot of heartwarming or just ads with important messages too. I know Corey mentioned Dove had a really tug at your heartstrings moment that it seemed to get a lot of positive reception for, very on par with their past ads. And then Mike just pointed out the Novartis breast cancer awareness ad. That was definitely different. And in a way, I didn't know what we were getting for the first, like 20 seconds of that ad. What do you guys think of that one?
I liked it. Similar with reaction on my end. I was with a group of people, and we were like, "What is this for?" Because it really does kind of lead you down the storyline of like, everyone is kind of advertised about this, but no one really talked about the actual
Yeah.
issues involving breast cancer. So I thought it was like really effective and really great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like it was also nice to have that push for women to go get tested. I think it like rounded out so perfectly with that message. But fully agree with what both of you were saying on I had no clue what was going on at first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say I thought that was going a different route.
Which I think was the point.
I thought it was gonna be like a sports bra commercial or something. So I do like how they once we got to the point of what it was, I did like it. I think some of the tropes and things at the beginning tie into breast in general, and then making sure that we're promoting that women should get tested. But
Yeah.
in the first few seconds, I was a little confused about where this was going. I thought this was going a different route, but I think that was probably part of what they wanted, so it worked for me at
Yeah.
least.
And it's an important PSA, especially from a brand I'm not familiar with. I don't know if it's maybe if you're more in tune with the health care world on that side of things, if familiar, but when I saw that, I was like, oh, who is this? And why is this what we're talking about? But I was like, wow, that's an important message to get out there at a time like the Super Bowl. So, and especially too, in recognition that there are probably a lot of women watching this year that in past years, without the Taylor Swift of it all, maybe wouldn't have. So, Grant, you mentioned some of the women empowerment themes. I think advertisers were all thinking about that for sure, and who was tuning in this year that maybe isn't always. So I thought that was interesting. I know in general there's probably so many trends that we could have talked about and didn't, because there were a lot of similarities across different spots and just different trends. I did see quite a few sweepstakes happening on the social side of things, even in addition to Fetch's approach that Matt talked about. I saw quite a few brands surprising us with spots, at least to some degree, a lot more leaning back into years ago when we used to see teasers only, if anything. And I know I was excited to see some spots that I hadn't seen in full, and unfortunately Coffee Mate was a letdown for me, but other ones were where they did take that approach were positive. So any just last thoughts from you guys or from our commenters about this year's Super Bowl and what you're taking away from it?
Go ahead, Brittany.
Oh, I just want to give some love to the Hexclad Pans commercial. I know we were talking about aliens throughout, but Pete Davidson confirming that all celebrities are aliens was perfect. No notes, chef's kiss.
I love that.
I would say for me, the Pfizer commercial with I think it was called Knockout, where it had the young men, boxing and all. I thought that was very well executed and very heartfelt. And then for me personally, that Super Bowl halftime show that
Yeah.
was that was
It
peak for me
was
personally.
so
That was
good.
peak.
That was great.
That was peak for me. There's been some great ones, but that one's up there for me.
I really enjoyed the halftime show. I think it's so funny when Kendrick looked directly into the camera on Hey Drake. Once again, no notes, chef's kiss. It had me.
Man.
Yeah. No, I thought the halftime show was great. I think it's really cool to see like some of the conversations online about the halftime show, and a lot of people have different ideas on like what it was about and what everything kind of meant. So it's nice to see that that like generated like a lot of discussion and a lot of that. Also, the music was just great. Yeah. And I guess kind of last thoughts, kind of echoing some of the stuff I think Melissa you had mentioned before. We did see like a lot of nostalgia plays, like a lot of stuff playing with nostalgia. A lot of ads focusing on like older people, but like older people still able to do younger things. Like the WeatherTech commercial was one that kind of really got my attention.
Stewart.
Yeah, the Martha Stewart Skechers commercial where she's like slide stepping. So weird. I did the same thing with Kansas City's coach afterwards, which that placement was rough, bud. But yeah, just some interesting trends coming through.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned starting discussion online and just discussion amongst us. There was definitely a lot to talk about for the Super Bowl, and Mike pointed out maybe a bit of an uninteresting matchup for the game itself from a lot of people's standpoint. And then, of course, the game got underway, as we mentioned, a bit of a blowout. So we were all, I think, speaking on behalf of all of us, excited to see some good commercials to comment on, and maybe some more safe than we've seen in past years, but still interesting and gave us a lot of fodder for this live today. So thank you all for sharing your thoughts. Thank you for everyone who has tuned in today. That is all the time we have. So if you are tuning in and you aren't following us, make sure you do that before you leave. And otherwise, we will see you all next year. It's a wrap on Super Bowl.
See you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.